Did I think I'd be turning 32 next week, have my own business working from home, and recording this podcast? If you asked me 3 years ago, I'd straight up be like, what? No, there's no way. Honestly, if you asked me 6 months ago if I would even have a podcast, I'd say no, because I remember having this conversation with my coach. I was like, I wouldn't have enough to say on a podcast. And she straight up side-eyed me like, yeah, Stacy, you never shut up. You obviously have enough to say on a podcast. But I digress. Welcome back to another episode of the Cozypreneur podcast. If this is your first time listening, Cozypreneur is all about helping you make money and work with the dreamiest of clients. So grab your beverage, get your cozy socks on, and let's dive in. How did I get here, right? Rewind to 2022. I had just finished my second master's in educational leadership. I'd been in the classroom for about a decade as a lead teacher for 5 years. On paper, I was ready to become a principal. I was climbing that corporate education ladder. But at that same time, I was spending my preps crying in a room where I knew nobody would be in, or crying at the counselor's office, or crying on my way to and from work. I would literally lie in bed every single day, dreading the day, to the point where I ended up needing to take a medical leave. And unfortunately, the stories of teachers leaving the classroom during COVID or after COVID is pretty common. There's a lot of issues. But for me, it actually started before COVID. 2019, I had a really, really hard year. And I won't get into too many details because I do want to protect the privacy of the students and of the families that were involved. But essentially, it was a lot of lawyers. It was a lawsuit against the school district. It was really, really unsupportive admin that really favored the parents at every turn and really did not care about how it was impacting the teachers and the students in the classroom. And the other piece was it was me and a co-teacher filing a grievance against the district through our union. And it was just so stressful. And that was the year where I really felt completely disrespected as a professional. Like, I felt like nothing I said mattered. I was showing up and trying to advocate for these kids, for these families, and it was like shouting into a void. And I acted as if like I didn't just say that. So it was a super stressful year. And as this kind of starts to get a little bit resolved, that's when COVID hits. So at this point, it's like February or March of 2020, and we're scrambling because they made us create 2 weeks of lesson plans. So I think you all remember, like, they were like, oh, COVID, prepare for 2 weeks, right? So I remember we put on a movie for the kids and we started making copies, getting 2 weeks of lessons good to go for these kids. And so you all know what happened. We end up staying home for the rest of the year. And that rest of the year, it's not horrible, right? I'm not teaching. My kids don't have technology. It's just like nobody really knows what's going on. But come fall, I'm told that I need to go back in person. And so one of the things that was really frustrating about this was the district was telling parents that teachers were choosing to go back, and they were saying that, oh, every teacher got to choose whether or not they go back. I was not given that choice. I was told I needed to go back in person, which to me was weird because I feel like I'm great at technology and I probably would have been a really good remote teacher. But whatever. The other piece was they also made me teach kindergarten, which I wasn't licensed in. I had no interest in doing, no shade to kindergartners, but kindergarten is really hard. Like, though, that's a different beast. Like, if you're teaching kindergarten, like, good on you, because kindergartners don't know how to do anything. And that 1 year difference between kindergarten and first grade is freaking huge in terms of like what they can do independently. But, I brought up my concerns. I said, hey, I'm not licensed. I don't know what I'm doing with kindergarten. And they said, they said what they always say with teachers, do it for the community. It doesn't really matter what you want. You need to do it for the greater good. So I made it through that first year. It was really annoying because every time somebody got COVID, we had to switch back to remote. And so it was really hard to get any consistency that year in routines, right? Because if you have kids or you work with kids, you know that routines are super freaking important. And what would happen is we would be in the classroom for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden we'd be home for 2 weeks, and then we'd go back to the classroom. And so we actually ended up becoming more behind than people who were remote full time, because we were losing so much time practicing those routines over and over again, and like remembering how to use the computer once we went remote. So it was rough, but I made it through that year, right? And so that was 2020 to 2021. And I go back in the fall of 2021. And at this point, I don't really want to go back. I'm done. I'm clocking in, I'm clocking out. I am not doing anything unpaid. I remember the lawyer said, can we meet with you after school? And I said, are you going to compensate me? And then all of a sudden they had time to meet with me during the school day, because yes, they did not want to pay me. And that situation from 2 years ago was still showing up. I still had to be meeting with lawyers. And so, my kids are still learning, they're still getting the results, but I am refusing to do anything that I don't need to do. And I also remember, so I taught in a Portuguese dual immersion. And so a lot of my families are Portuguese speaking from Portugal or from Brazil. And one of the things that admin wanted me to do was translate for the parents who don't speak English. And while past me would have said yes, this burnt out version of me was not happy about it. I was like, no. I said, you need to get a translator. The district employs translators, and it is not my responsibility. And I'm also not a professional translator. Like, I don't want to be responsible if something is lost in translation. Like, there are professional translators for a reason. And so I really started saying no. And I started to get some like pushback from admin around this of like, well, why wouldn't you just do it for the community, right? All of these things. And my resentment towards showing up at work and my anxiety was just, it was getting so bad. And that was really where I was getting to the point where I couldn't make it through the day without crying. I literally was like lying in bed debating for an hour if I could take another sick day. Like, how long has it been since I've taken a sick day? Can I take another sick day? I don't want to be at work. And so that is really the last straw when I was like, I need a break from this. I need to take medical leave. It was also leading up to my wedding. So it was just having that extra layer of like, not that planning my wedding was stressful, but it's exhausting. There's a lot you have to do. So I was done. And a lot of my days were looking like work, sleep, wake up for dinner, go back to sleep, go back to work. And I was just so tired that I didn't have the energy or the mental brain space to literally do anything else. But listen, that medical leave, it changed my life. During that medical leave, got married, went on my honeymoon. We went to Scotland and Ireland. It was amazing. And on that trip, I knew I wasn't going back. I actually feel like at my wedding, I knew I wasn't going back. One of my coworkers was there, and she was like, I'll see you like back in May. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going back. But at this point, it was like Thursday and I was scheduled to go back the next Monday. So I call my doctor. I'm like, can you extend my leave until the end of the year? Because I was trying to still get paid through the end of the year and I had all of my sick days, but she wouldn't do it because she said, anxiety just gets worse if you avoid it, which is like fine, but I still knew I wasn't going back. So I had to figure something out. And I just called my principal and I handed in my letter of resignation and I didn't go back. Even though I was scheduled to go back in like 4 days, it was fine. The person who took my spot is lovely and amazing, and she was already subbing for me. So the kids were fine. My principal is actually like very supportive and the families were very supportive. I do feel like the kids were a little bit confused because it was almost the end of the year, but they were like, okay, I don't really understand what's going on. So it was hard. It was a hard decision to make. I definitely felt bad, but it was also what I needed to do for myself and for my health. And once I did it, it was probably the most freeing thing that I could have ever done. And I will say, like, side note on this, like, I did have a bunch of savings. Like, I had worked so hard the past 10 years that I had some cushion money. So I gave myself like 6 months. Okay, like you can veg, you can heal, you can figure shit out in the next 6 months. So that was kind of my story of like how I left teaching. And I got into copywriting because I was actually scrolling Instagram and I saw this ad that said copywriting is a great career for former teachers. And as somebody with 3 degrees, I've done a lot of writing. So I'm like, all right, cool. I can learn a new form of writing. This doesn't sound horrible. Because as I was looking at job boards of like, what am I going to do next? Like everything felt icky. Like nothing felt like I was going to actually enjoy it. And so like the combination of finding that copywriting class and then also looking at job boards and being like, I hate all of these jobs. That was pretty much how I fell into business. And then after that first copywriting course, I was like, all right, I need to learn more. So I invested in a better, more in-depth course. I invested in so much coaching. And then I built this business, which is about to hit year 3, which is kind of wild. I don't know. It's kind of wild that I've made it all the way to year 3. But I will say, like, even being 3 years out from teaching, there's a part of me that misses teaching. And that's really where like I built Copy Classroom, because I needed like that feeling of like seeing my students learn and grow, and like seeing these people, like helping people like get results and helping people just get to somewhere like they didn't realize they could be. And so that's really like where the coaching side of the business kind of came from. I actually had a client say to me last week, she's like, oh, this is like school, but no pressure and it's actually fun. And I'm like, exactly. That is exactly what I'm going for. Like fun school, because I'm somebody who's always going to be learning and I love teaching. And so I love just like being able to share my knowledge with my clients so we can like all learn and grow together. But anyways, there's obviously more to this story, things I've learned through different coaching programs I've been in, mistakes I made, all of the ups and downs of starting a business. It is wild. And I will do more episodes on all of that, but I will leave you with this for now. I would have never pictured this for myself. And I feel super lucky to have ended up here where I am. And I also know it wouldn't have happened if I never trusted my gut. It was something that I didn't know I needed. All I knew that I needed was to get out. And listening to that little voice, that was the best thing I could have ever done for myself. So anyways, that is a little bit about me and my story. I am happy to connect with you on Instagram, and I love hearing all of your stories. I know there's a lot of former teachers in my space, so I know you can probably relate to a lot of what I was talking about. Anyway, see you at the next episode. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate and leave a review on your preferred listening platform. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe for weekly episodes about how to make money and work with the dreamiest of clients without having to get dressed in the morning. Make sure to check out the show notes down below, and I'll see you in the next episode.